If you don't like the sales process, you're doing it wrong. All right. Now, let me back up a little bit because, first of all, I don't really consider it sales. Now, at a technical standpoint, it is sales. If you're in business for yourself and you don't like sales, that is a big problem because you are constantly selling. What you're selling most likely is yourself. Now, there's certainly businesses out there where you can brand the business apart from you. But in a professional service-based business like tax preparation, tax planning, tax strategy, whatever your focus is, bookkeeping, anything like that, if you're in a professional service, your trust, your face, your personality, you are the face of that business no matter how you market it. Now, again, there's ways that you can get around that and really brand the business, but most of the people that I'm talking to, they're starting out as solo practitioners and they are really the brand of their business. It's them. So if you don't like asking people for their business, or you don't like sitting down and delivering your services and saying, here's what it is. Well, one, I think that you're probably doing it wrong if you don't enjoy it because it's actually not complicated. It's not uncomfortable if you do it in the right way. So what is the right way? Now, to me, the right way is you're not trying to convince anyone to hire you. If you are answering questions like, why should I hire you? Why are you different than TurboTax? Why are you different than the person before me? If you're trying to answer those questions, or if the person is like, I really don't know, and then you kind of launch into like, but we do this and this and this. If you're trying to convince someone, you've probably already lost. Because even if you do convince them to work with you, how long before they regret that decision? How long before they have that buyer's remorse? Because, hey, you were good at, wording it to where it convinced me to get it. But at the end of the day, when I thought about it, I'm not real sure about this. It's not something I wanted to do, but you were a smooth talker. That is not what you want. The sales process should be offering what you provide, and they opt in or they don't. It's not you trying to convince anyone. It's not you using some sort of sales tactic to overcome objections and to close the deal any means necessary. So what do? I follow the StoryBrand framework. This is by Donald Miller. You can go to his website. You can find it. But it's basically this kind of overview format. It's a character. Now, that's your client. They're the hero of the story. You are not the hero of their story. They are. So there's a character, which is your prospective client. They have a problem. They meet a guide. That's you, not the hero. You're the guide. They meet a guide who has a plan to help them overcome their problem. You call them to action. And when they act, they have overcome their problem that leads to success, and they have avoided a failure. All right. So that is the high level overview of this StoryBrand framework. And if you follow that, you are a guide who has a solution to their problem. You do not have to convince anyone to hire you. They either have the problem and want your solution, or they have the problem and aren't willing to pay for your solution, in which case you don't want them as a client anyway because they're going to be one who's not a happy client. Or they don't have the problem, so they don't need your solution, and you part ways and you go on about life. So it's really, I like the restaurant analogy. I forget who mentioned this, but I liked it. And that's where, when you go into a restaurant, they don't try to convince you what to order. They're not like, hey, you're in the restaurant, you really should order from us because we're better than the restaurant around the corner. And, this is why the meal is worth this price because of X, Y, and Z. No, they have a general sense already because they know what type of food is there. They know about what the pricing should be. And they come in, they sit down, you give them a menu as the waiter, and you say, hey, here is what we offer and here's the pricing. What would you like to order? And they pick what they want. And there's no sales. There's no tactics. There's no trying to get them to upgrade to something else. It's just, here's all the stuff we're willing to do and the price we're willing to do it for. Which one do you want? And this is what my sales calls are like. Clients know that I do tax work. So they come in and they say, I need help. Here's my problem. Now, if in their description of their problem, I hear something that I don't do, I just tell them that. Look, I don't do sales tax. If you need sales tax reporting done for you, then, we can just close down the appointment right now. And, no hard feelings. I don't offer that. So I'm not going to be able to solve your problem. Now, if they say, like, hey, taxes are stressful and I really don't want to deal with them, I solve that problem. I do that. That is, and honestly, most of the people who reach out to me, they're going to have the right problem that I solve because of my website. My website says taxes are stressful. We give you peace of mind, right? And so the website, the stuff that I post on social media, the videos that I do, all of it is meant to attract the right type of client that has the problem that I know I can solve. And so basically, they're in the appointment. We know they have the problem. I start to talk to them about, hey, why did you reach out? Why are you looking for a CPA? X, Y, or Z. Here's why I'm here. It all boils down basically to I've got a problem. I need to file my tax return. It's stressful. I can't find someone else to do it. I didn't like the previous person because they weren't a good communicator or whatever, right? So whatever it is, they have a problem. Great. I can help you with that. Here's what I offer. I offer 3 different menu items. There's a basic compliance. If you just want to comply and better understand your taxes, pick that. It's the cheapest option. I'll prepare the return, answer any questions you have about it so that you better understand it. We'll file it. You'll be compliant. Great. Now, if you want to be a little bit more proactive and you want to ask questions throughout the year and you want me to be available for that, the second menu option is for that. Costs a little bit more, but you get a little bit more. You get me year-round, my advice, my thoughts on whatever it is that comes up that you want to ask me about. You want the premium strategic option? That's where we're going to sit down and we're going to look forward and think through, how can we mitigate taxes in the future? How can we get these down on an ongoing basis? How can we forecast the taxes in order to avoid surprises? Hey, I owed last year. I don't think my withholding was right. Okay, we can do the planning appointment. We can forecast out your taxes. We can fix that, help you with your W-4 so that you don't have those surprises anymore. That's more on the strategic planning option side where we're going to look forward and avoid things like that. So that's going to cost a little bit more because that's a lot more value. And then I just ask, which one of these is what you want to go with? And if they say, I want basic compliant, I say, great. That's perfect. Let's do that. I don't try to upsell them. Now, if they ask me, if they say, hey, look, I shared with you kind of what my pain points are, which one do you think fits me the best? I'll tell them. And I will tell them if I think that the compliant is best. I am not trying to sell people into the premium strategic level service if I don't think that they are looking for that. I also tell them, I say, look, if you start with a compliant and you get halfway through the year and you want that planning appointment, just pay the difference and upgrade. I'm not trying to sell you on that. In fact, I'll even tell them, I say, look, if you go with the strategic and you find out later you don't want that, I'm not refunding you the difference. So if you're unsure, start with the compliant level, the basic level, and upgrade later in the year if you need it. I'm not trying to oversell you because what I want are satisfied clients. I want to solve the problem they have. I don't want to try to upsell them into paying for something when they don't have a perceived need for it. I only want to solve the problem that they are aware that they have. Now, I can ask questions sometimes and help them realize or become aware that they actually have a problem that they're not aware of. Now, you don't want to manufacture that, but if you can sense that they have it and they haven't really become aware of it yet, there's some questions that you could ask. Maybe you get them there. Or you just say, that's fine, we'll just go with the compliant. Even if I know that they should be on the strategic level, higher level plan, but they're saying they want to be on a compliant, I just tell them, that's fine. And if you find out later you want to move up, then move up. I do not try to pressure people or upsell them. This is not a meeting where I'm trying to convince anyone of anything. They have come to me because they have a problem. Here's how I can solve that problem. Do you want me to solve it? Here's what I charge. Wow, that's a lot more than I expected. No problem. I understand. Everyone's budget is different. People value things differently. This is what I do that for. And, I'm not going to negotiate the price. If, it's worth it to you for that work and to solve that problem, great. Let's move forward. If not, no hard feelings. That's fine. Reach out to other CPAs, reach out to other tax preparers. If you can find someone who's you have a good fit with and who's willing to do it for cheaper, by all means, go for it. But if you realize that they're not solving your problem, a lot of times the problem is the communication side. A lot of times the problem is just not a good fit with that advisor, with how they deliver advice and how they talk about things. And I find that most of my clients, they want my approach. They want my voice. They want my personality. They want the way that I talk to them like I would a friend. And so, you cannot get that from anyone else. Sure, there's other people who deliver advice similar to me. There's a lot of people who deliver the same advice as me, but in a completely different way. But you can only get me if you hire me. So if I've made a connection with them and if they're really liking how I, treat them and how I deliver value to them and how I talk about things, then they can only get me for the price that I'm willing to do it for. And again, if we get to that point and they say, wow, that's more than I expected, I'm still shopping around, or that's more than I expected, that's outside of my budget, my answer is always, hey, I completely understand that. That's no problem at all. If things change, reach back out to me and we'll go from there. But in the meantime, it was great to meet you and I wish you the best. No hard feelings at all. And a lot of times clients come back, prospective clients come back. Sometimes clients leave me and then they come back because they realize the grass was not greener on the other side. Because like I said, customer service in this industry is horrific. And so I get a lot of clients that come back because they like the way that I treat them and they like the way that I talk about things. Very matter of fact, very direct, very open, very honest. I don't try to oversell them. I don't try to convince them of anything. I say, hey, look here. Same thing with my sales appointment. Here's what I offer. Do you want it or not? I give my tax advice the same way. Here's what the options are. Here's what I would recommend. If it were me, I'd do it this way. Here's what you can do. You don't have to do it the same way as me, and you can do this. And if you want to do that, that's fine. I'll sign the tax return. We'll move on. And here's what a lot of other people are doing. To me, that is crossing the line. I'm not willing to sign that tax return, but it's fine. If you want to do that, you just have to find someone else to do that. No hard feelings again. You move on. I'll move on. There's more clients out there for me. There's other preparers out there who will do those crazy cross the line things. If you want to do that, that's fine. I'm there's a ton of people out there who have this problem, who are looking for someone to help them. And I think that an abundance mentality will go a long ways in your sales appointment. And by that, you've probably heard of that: abundance mentality or scarcity mentality. If you have a scarcity mentality where there's only a limited number of clients to go around and I've got to convince the few that are reaching out to me to hire me, one, that's going to come across and it's actually going to repel clients. And it's going to be almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if you have that abundance mentality of, hey, look, here's someone with a problem that I can solve. I'll tell them how I can solve it, offer them my services. And if they say no, great, no hard feelings, that's fine. You got to be okay with people saying no, and you can't take that personally. If you're going to make it, you cannot take that personally. That's fine. They either don't realize it or maybe it wasn't a good fit to begin with. Great. There's more people out there. There's another sales call tomorrow. You're going to be able to find another client who does fit. And so have an abundance mentality, have a generosity mentality. Even if I don't want the client, I'll answer questions in the appointment. I give free advice all the time in new sales, prospective client appointments, where if they ask me about S corporations, I'll talk to them a little bit about kind of the point of which they should be considering it and when they shouldn't. And if they never hire me, they got some value from me and they talk well about me and they say, look, I ended up not hiring Brad, but maybe they mentioned me to their neighbor. Like, hey, this guy, he's a great guy. And, he was outside of our budget, or maybe they don't say that, right? But they're thinking that, or whatever the reason, right? But they still might refer me if I left a good impression on them. And if I was kind and I was generous and I wasn't high pressure and I wasn't offended when they decided not to hire me or told me that my prices were too high for them, whatever, like the more you can be generous and have an abundance mentality, the more you're going to attract people. And the more people you attract, the higher the demand, the higher your pricing can be, the more work you'll have to do. You don't even have to close every single client. You're never going to close every single prospective client. So don't even go in thinking that. Go in expecting that there's going to be some no's and you're okay with that. So in summary, if you're not enjoying your prospective client calls, I think that you're doing them wrong and you need to tweak it. Follow this StoryBrand framework, attract the clients who are a good fit based on how you're communicating and how you're doing it. When they come to you, identify the problem. If you have a solution for the problem, offer it up at your pricing and wait and see if they select you or not. If they don't, no hard feelings, move on to the next. If they do, great. Let's set it up. Let's sign it. Let's move forward. You're simply offering a solution to their problem. You don't have a problem. You're not trying to convince anyone to hire you. Don't convince them. They'll regret it later. And even if they don't, it's just not a great way to start the relationship. Here's what I offer. Do you want it or not? If they do, move forward. Hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully you start to enjoy those prospective client calls if you take this approach. Leave me comments and let me know what you think about this. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Leave me comments here. Just get in touch with me. Give me feedback. What do you think? If you have questions there too. But whatever it is, I hope that this was helpful, and I appreciate you watching.